Alright, so I got both up. Cool. We'll be starting in now. Alright, so I'm going to start with the first article in chronological order. Starting with a former Hynix employee which transferred advanced chip packaging technologies to Huawei. Now, I'm not sure how the contracts work, but I don't think you can legally get away with that. But we'll see what the technology is and whether it was under NDA or not. A former SK Hynix employee has been formally accused of illegally transferring technologies related to advanced chip packaging used for 3D NAND, HBM and multi-chiplet assemblies, as well as CMOS image sensors, to Huawei's HiSilicon division. This is reports from DigiTimes, citing the Seoul Central District Prosecutor Office. There's an interesting wrinkle in the story. Huawei's HiSilicon did not directly ask for specific technologies. Now I want to know is, what did SK Hynix do to this employee that made them leak this information? While working at Huawei, the suspect allegedly took IP related to CMOS image sensors and hybrid bonding chip packaging technology that is used for 3D NAND, HBM3, HBM3E, HBM4 memory, as well as advanced stacked multi-chiplet packages such as TSMC's SoIC and Intel's Foveros 3D. It is unclear whether the suspect's targets were hybrid bonding or image sensors, or just hybrid bonding, as modern CMOS sensors use hybrid bonding. SK Hynix reportedly clarified that the leaked bonding related information concerned general wafer-to-wafer processes and not the specific hybrid bonding technique which is currently being developed or used for commercial products. For Chinese companies like Huawei, which does not have access to advanced process technologies and packaging methods used by TSMC and SK Hynix, as well as SMIC, which does not have access to the latest lithography equipment made by the ASML, getting wafer bonding know-how from SK Hynix, which had licensed such technologies from Xperi, may be considered as a major breakthrough, as wafer bonding is becoming increasingly important for multiple semiconductor applications. The individual in question is a South Korean citizen known only in the complaint by his surname Kim, previously worked for the Chinese unit of SK Hynix. Authorities allege that in 2022 he secured a position with a HiSilicon, and during the hiring process improperly accessed and misused internal data belonging to SK Hynix. This is pretty serious claims that's being made. Kim reportedly printed out and captured photographs of internal files against policy. Investigators discovered that over 11,000 photographs of confidential content were taken, and steps were allegedly made to mask origin by removing the company's identifiers, such as brand logos, secrecy labels, from the images. That is an insane amount of pictures, like, to take off documents of confidential and legal and information that's legally under NDA. That is insanely. I don't know what SK Hynix did to this guy, but they had to have done something to him that caused him to do that. There's no way. I refuse to believe that he just randomly did this on a whim. There's a chance that that HiSilicon is involved in this in the background, but no one's admitting it. but there's also the case that something happened during this employee's employment with SK hynix, and then the conditions were just so bad that he just decided not to ever whatever loyalty he had was just completely lost. Evidence indicates that Kim submitted these materials as part of job applications to 2 separate companies in China, using them to enhance his qualifications. Authorities now claim that this was a calculated effort to secure employment using unlawfully obtained information from his former employer. The reports confirm that many technologies developed in China in general, and by Huawei specifically, originate from multinational corporations. But there is an interesting twist. Huawei did not explicitly ask the suspect to bring it to SK hynix trade secrets. Even though the company is known for poaching highly skilled employees from world-class companies by offering them huge salaries, but accepted them as part of the hiring process. Oh, Huawei. And then Huawei's going to try and wipe their hands clean of that. The case has drawn attention in South Korea due to rising concerns about the outflow of specialized semiconductor knowledge, specifically as China is trying hard to achieve semiconductor self-sufficiency. It highlights the increasing risk around workforce migration and the global effort to enforce tighter control over the transmission of high-value industrial IP. And this would also come down to how you treat your employees and the working conditions that you provide your employees, how you provide for your employees. All of that plays into account, because a loyal employee would remain loyal even outside of their employment with you. So they can be fired, they can be retrenched, they can retire, and they would still be loyal to your company. If you truly take care of your employees, they will do that. Obviously there's some that will take advantage of that, but for the majority they will remain loyal to their employer. This is not the first time when SK hynix employee left for Huawei and takes the company's IP with them. Last year, the Suwon district court sentenced one of SK hynix employees who departed to Huawei with 4,000 secret documents to 18 months behind bars and a fine. So the sentence is a bit light, but it also depends on what information it was that was leaked to the Huawei company. But the fact that it's happened before is telling me that there's something about SK hynix working conditions that causes employees to not remain loyal to them. Right, I will close that, and let me add a quick timestamp. So 09. Okay. Next article. NVIDIA RTX 1590 can crack an 8-digit passcode in just 8 hours. Password cracking benchmarks show tremendous performance. So when it comes to password hacking, the RTX 1590 is anywhere between 33% and twice as fast as the RTX 1490. So I just wanted to have a look at this because this is actually pretty good in terms of in terms of the performance of the RTX 1590 compared to the 1490 outside of synthetics. Now, to be fair, this is technically some form of a synthetic where it needs to crack a password that's 8 digits long, but I still find it interesting to see, and I think that there should be like a test that actually does this, because this sounds like it can be a pretty decent benchmark to use. Also considering the fact that the RTX 1590 is around 30% faster than the 1490, I can just have a look at that real quick. 1590 tech. It is not tech. Tech power up. Let's have a look. It is on average around 26% faster than the 4090, and I think hardware unboxed had some performance gaps of upwards of 30%, if I remember correctly. It was a pretty substantial upgrade to go from a 4090 to a 5090, but like from 4080 and especially 4080 Super to the 5080, it was not a substantial upgrade. In any case, the RTX 5090 is not only good at gaming and AI, it also excels at password cracking. Hive Systems updated its password cracking benchmark suite with 12 RTX 5090 graphics cards, Nvidia's fastest and best game graphics card for gaming currently, and found all 12 cards working together can break simple 8-character passwords in under 15 minutes. So if it's 8-character and not 8-digit, then that's even more so impressive, because you're not just working with numbers, then you're working with punctuation, symbols and letters. It's not just digits. Hive Systems is in its 5th year of benchmarking password cracking times on GPUs. The last update they made was in 2024, featuring the RTX 4090. Rather than cracking an actual password itself, the outlet cracks hashes, which are scrambled versions of reproducible text generated by software. Hashes are a popular method for securing customer passwords against hackers by storing passwords as hashes on servers. When hashes go to steal a password database from a company's server that is secured with hashing, all they will see are hashes of the company's of the passwords they represent, rather than the actual passwords themselves. So looking at this, using one 5090 compared to one 4090, the performance difference was around 1000 years, but numbers only was a difference of 1 hour, so it's not 3 times the performance gap. That is misleading. That is so misleading. There isn't anything that constitutes anything close to even a 3-hour gap. In any case, well, let me have a look here just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. No, there's nothing of 3 times 33%. Yeah, there's nothing of a 3 times gap. Actually no, 3 times would be 300%. What am I talking about? 33% is technically correct, actually. Technically correct. Because 4 hours versus 3 hours, there is a percentage that's slightly above 33%. Also looking at the 10 months to 8 months, it's more of a 25%. Looking at all the numbers, yes, it's around 25% as a 1-to-1 over the 33% that the article title points towards. So that puts it even more so within the average performance difference that Tech Power Up has of the 26%, because 25% is pretty accurate then. So that should be a relevant benchmark to determine a performance difference, because that seemed very accurate then. Anyway, moving on, cracking passwords with this method involves making a list of all possible combinations of characters to make a password, then matching them to a stolen database featuring password hashes. Graphics cards are particularly good at this methodology due to highly parallelized computing capabilities. With 12 RTX 5090s, Hive Systems found Nvidia's flagship can crack the hash equivalent of 8 8-character passwords featuring numbers only in just 15 minutes. Passwords comprised of 8 lowercase letters. The dozen of RTX 5090s were able to crack in 3 weeks. On the other end of the spectrum, passwords taking advantage of numbers, upper and lowercase letters would take 12 RTX 5090s 62 years to crack and 164 years to crack with symbols added into the mix. For generation on generation, a single RTX 5090 can crack a numerical only password hash with 8 numbers in 3 hours. A single RTX 4090 can accomplish the same task in 4 hours, representing a 33% performance improvement for the RTX 5090 over the RTX 4090 in the specific scenario. Still don't see where the 33% gets to, but yeah. Okay, just 2 paragraphs left, that's fine. However, as the password complexity increases, the RTX 5090 becomes faster and faster in comparison, making up to a hash representing an 8-character password made up of numbers, upper and lowercase letters combined with symbols. The RTX 5090 is allegedly twice as fast as the RTX 4090, but cracking a password that complex would take the RTX 5090 a millennium to accomplish. So I think I can just end there, and I think that it was interesting to have a look at this, and I think that this should be part of benchmarking, where it's a numbers only comparison or a lowercase letter only password, because this seems to be pretty accurate compared to the actual aggregated performance that was found in the reviews. Let's do that, and we are coming to the title article, and we are now 18 minutes in. That was a typo. Well, that's fine, I will still know where it is. Moving on. NVIDIA's RTX 5060 will launch without reviews since chipmaker opts not to supply press drivers to reviewers. So there have already been a couple of videos about this where various review outlets have presented videos of not receiving any drivers, and I believe the news is that board partners are specifically instructed to not provide any press drivers to reviewers, and I don't think any press drivers do exist with the NVIDIA cards, which is, to be quite blunt, the most anti-consumer move that NVIDIA has made this generation so far. I will emphasize so far because there's always the chance that they could do something even less consumer friendly in the future. But let's take a look at this and we'll see what the article has to say. There might be more information regarding this. So NVIDIA just confirmed that it's withholding pre-release drivers from reviewers for the RTX 5060, which will rival the best graphics cards, according to Dutch publication tweakers.net, and this is machine translated. The company said that it will only make the drivers for the mainstream graphics cards available on May 19th, the card's release date. This is also going to be during the CEX or Computex, but the event in China, which most reviewers are going to attend, and they won't be able to have any reviews prepared for the launch of the RTX 5060. Now, some rumors are suggesting that the RTX 5060 is going to have poor stock, so that could be a blessing in disguise, where there's just so few stock that by the time reviewers are able to create their review videos and release them, the damage to the consumer group would be minimized. And this is only under the assumption that the rumors of the low stock are indeed true. However, that can always change. Many reviewers already have the GPU in their labs and test benches, but they still haven't received the pre-release drivers typically included in the review kit. Several publications that usually receive these pre-release drivers have taken to social media and their respective pages to say that they still haven't gotten the required software to run what would be Nvidia's most affordable RTX 50 series codename Blackwell's GPU. Team Kirin finally confirmed this to tweeters.net, who said that it will only make the RTX 5060 drivers available on the day of their release. This means that the tech media won't be able to test the GPU until May 19th and publish their results after it goes on sale. This will obviously be after it's already too late for consumers, because the group that watches reviews before purchasing that group will be punished if it's a good performing card, because it means that those who don't watch reviews would be the ones that just blindly purchase them, and the one who watch reviews would probably wait for the reviews to drop first to make an informed purchase. And then there's a group that watch reviews but they are willing to gamble, and they are potentially going to be burned by Nvidia if it's a poorly performing card. However, if someone is always going to lose in this scenario, because no one is able to make an informed purchase. So you're either being burned because you took a risk, or you're being burned for not taking a risk and it was indeed a good performing card, and now you'll have to wait until a restock happens in the future, which would already be a more expensive purchase due to the tariffs. Another complication is that the GPU will arrive exactly one day before Computex 2025. This will make it harder for publications with smaller teams to run tests upon the driver's release, as most of the people will likely travel to Taiwan to attend the Tech Expo. Because of this, budget gamers who are keen on getting a new affordable GPU will have no way of gauging how the RTX 5060 will perform on the day of launch. If you're one of those raring for a new graphics card, we recommend holding off until you see independent reviews for the mainstream card. This is indeed correct. However, this majority of people do not watch any reviews they purchase. They trust the marketing and they purchase accordingly. After all, a new GPU release does not automatically mean that you're getting a good powerful card for the money you're spending. For example, the RTX 5060 Ti 8GB, which here has an MSRP of $379 US, falls behind the $429 16GB version, especially when attached to a PCIe 4.0 slot. Now, that performance disparity between PCIe is completely due to the bandwidth of the PCIe lanes. If this was a 16x card, I believe that the 5060 Ti 8GB would not have as bad of a performance dump on the different PCIe slots. Nvidia did not give a reason for the delay, but it could be that it's still making some last minute tweaks to the GPU driver. It could be that the drivers are in a reprehensible state at the moment. Well, not reprehensible. How do I put this in a way that sounds worse? Because reprehensible would be that they can come back from that. Irreprehensible would not be the appropriate term, but it's in the most unusable state for them to not to be able to release any press release drivers, which is concerning considering they've been having driver problems from the launch of the 5090 up until now, and it's not boding well for NVIDIA if that remains to be the case behind the scenes. That way it can ensure that the RTX 5060 will deliver some performance measure despite only having 8GB of VRAM. All the company is avoiding getting its lowest tier RTX 50 series GPU compared to the Intel Arc B580, which Tom's Hardware has dubbed the $249 GPU champion even before it starts selling. Now, it could also be that the performance is just absolutely terrible when using these graphics cards, but we'll only be able to see once the reviews it. It is very unfortunate, but that is the current state of affairs that we find ourselves in. So, around 2630. Alright, so this is just a tier list of the best graphics cards for gaming in 2025, and this includes all from budget to high-end options, and we're just going to go through the list that they have and we'll have a look at what they are saying. So they are ranking these according to performance. Purely performance is what I'm suspecting from this list. So we have 5090, 5080, 5070 Ti, then the 9070 XT, the 9070, the 5070, the Intel Arc B580, the GeForce RTX 4060, the Intel Arc B570, the Radeon RX 7600. I mean, I know the 7600 XT is not a huge performance difference. It's literally just more VRAM on a 7600. But I was assuming that they would put the XT version because of the VRAM. But I guess not. Then we have the Intel Arc A750 right at the bottom. Okay, so here we go. That was performance ranking that they had in their list that you should purchase. And I think this is value based, so they have the RTX 5070 at number 1. They have the RX 9070. Now, the only reason why I would think that they would put the RX 9070 at number 2 and not number 1 is that the RX 9070 still doesn't have as much FSR4 support as the 5070 has DLSS4 support, and outside of that, even the lower tier versions of DLSS are still far superior to FSR in its software version. The hardware machine learning super sampling that they do in FSR4 is a significant improvement. We have the Intel Arc B580. If you can get it for MSRP, it's a perfectly good card for the budget users, but unfortunately it's really at yeah, there we go, it's at $350 US. It's rare to find that thing at MSRP, and I don't think it will ever be at MSRP again in the future. Over here we have the GeForce RTX 4060, which is a mighty card. Unlike the B580, it doesn't suffer from any driver overhead issues, which is a good thing. Unlike the 4060, however, the B580 has enough VRAM. The 4060 should have been a 12GB card. Seems more like a RTX 4050. That is correct. It is indeed a 4050. Over here we have the RX 7600 and number 5. I don't think this card deserves to be number 5 if I'm being completely honest. It has a small VRAM buffer that's meant to be a 7500 XT if I'm being completely honest. This card is just a money grab. In my opinion, it's widely inefficient. Only 8GB of VRAM. It's not really that good at ray tracing. Doesn't really have the FSR4 availability to it. There might be some compatibility layer that they later introduce, but I doubt that it will ever perform as well as true FSR4 and have the same level of quality. I doubt that will ever happen. Over here we have the B570, similar to the B580, mighty card to have at your disposal. However, it suffers from the same the same pricing issues that the B580 suffers from, as well as being quite low in availability. I haven't seen them in stock for a while, but I have seen some get a restock. But unfortunately, Battlemage is in that state where the stock comes and goes, and when it goes, it stays away for a good while. Over here we have the RTX 5080, which is actually a pretty good card if you can get it at MSRP. And that's a huge if. Unfortunately, every newly released GPU has not been at MSRP, and to make things even worse, it's not only not at MSRP, it's grossly above MSRP. Now, in certain countries, there have been articles of the 5070 going below MSRP, and the MSRP is including the included VAT version of those countries. So over here we can see 16 gigabytes of VRAM is a weakness. Yes, the RTX 5080 should have had 24 gigabytes. However, when the super refresh comes, it will probably have 24 gigabytes of VRAM. Minor performance gains over prior generation, that is correct. However, if you are not on Ada Lovelace, it is more wise for you to get the RTX 5080, or to wait for the RTX 5080 Super to release, because it's pretty much being carved in stone that there's going to be a super release of that card. Over here we have the Radeon RX 9070 XT. This card is pretty good, similar to the 9070 non-XT. However, it does suffer from not having FSR for enough games. However, this would be more of an investment purchase when more games utilize that. However, unless there's a way for you to implement FSR4 in older titles that aren't going to get updates from FSR software versions to FSR4, you're not really in a good situation with that. The card does pull a good chunk of power. I will say that. Vio, it's very overpriced at retail right now and behind NVIDIA on features and software. That is correct. If you need productivity, NVIDIA is still a better option for you. However, if it's purely gaming, then the Radeon card might be better. It's pretty competitive in rasterized performance. However, the card is not at MSRP. It is far above MSRP. And there probably won't be any MSRP models unless AMD continues to provide rebates to companies. Over here we have the RTX 5070 Ti, and this is a card that I actually intend to buy in the future. And what drives me to purchase this one is that it's essentially a 4080, just on a newer architecture. I think it uses slightly less power than the 4080, and then it has the DLSS 4 support. All of that, and it's just not at retail price. That's the only thing that's keeping me away. Minor improvement over the 4070 Ti Super and multi-frame generation marketing claims. However, in rasterized performance, it has performed close to a 4080. Just to keep that in mind. Over here at number 10 we have the RTX 5090. This card is pulling a ton of power. It is pretty good of an improvement over the 4090. Many people expected Blackwell to continue that trend down the stack. However, it did not do that, unfortunately, but it's pretty expensive. Intel Arc A750. So this card is pretty inefficient of a card. It is one of the biggest drawbacks of the 700 Alchemist cards. They are pretty inefficient. They draw a ton of power, and I don't believe they support XeSS 2, but XeSS 1 is pretty competitive with the DLSS 3, so it's good enough in terms of its upscaling. However, the DirectX 9 support issues is still not good, and driver issues may still occur. That is also a problem with that. PC needs rebuy as well. It only has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Now the A770 is the card that has the 16 gigabytes of VRAM. And these are going through performance charts. These are price listings. I think we can move on to another article after this. I didn't want to read anything in particular. I just wanted to see where they ranked each one. And it's good to see that they haven't used any of the price to performance buzzword using in terms of recommendation of a purchase, because at the end of the day, price to performance is a comparative metric and not a purchasing metric that you should utilize. And now 36 minutes, and I can put this in the 25-second mark. Alright, so this is something I'm interested in. We have been covering some Huawei news, covering them manufacturing their own AI chips, so I think it's good that we can continue that trend with looking at more Huawei news and seeing what they're developing behind the scenes. So Huawei's Kirin X90 may be the company's Apple Silicon moment. The Matebook Pro 2025 features in-house hardware and software. So this is something that Apple did when they moved away from Intel and started making their own M chips. This would be Huawei's moment to have something similar. Now obviously they won't have the same adoption. They have their own operating system that they're already going to implement onto their laptops. And that's supposed to be a closed ecosystem that they have between their laptops, their phones and their tablets, which is good to see. And on top of that, this further strengthens the growth of Huawei within the Chinese market. Yesterday, Huawei unveiled its Matebook Pro 2025 laptops, powered by Harmony OS, the firm's newly developed operating system, independent of Linux and Android. I wish they put it on Linux, however, because Linux is an open source distro. But we'll just have to see what they plan to do with it. Breaking free from Microsoft shackles. At the event, Chinese enthusiasts had to go with the machine. They discovered it reportedly features a new SoC from Huawei's chip subsidiary HiSilicon. The Kirin X90 built with a custom ARM-based design. This might be Huawei's Apple Silicon moment, integrating its devices with in-house software and hardware. The compatibility with already developed applications remains an open question. Now, this can be alleviated by Huawei creating its own apps as well, which, to be fair, Huawei had done that by creating its own store, its own browser, I believe, with its Huawei phones. But we'll have to see how this continues. Following sanctions imposed in 2020, the US significantly limited Huawei in its ability to work with international chip designers and manufacturers. Within a short span, the company firm was forced to rely on indigenous alternative sourcing chips from its HiSilicon division, with manufacturing primarily handled by China's SMIC, unlike Longshan's chips, which employ its custom long architecture. Huawei's cores utilize off-the-shelf ARM Cortex designs and now its own ARM-based Tizen V-series architectures. Huawei laptops have mostly been powered by hardware from AMD or Intel, with a few exceptions. While Huawei showcased its upcoming Harmony OS powered by Matebook Pro laptops, enthusiasts found evidence that the Kirin X90 SoC powers them through the system information. Further details by Leaked Digital Chat Station suggest that the Kirin X90, codenamed Charlotte Pro, wields a 10-core 442 20-thread layout. The design is set to mirror the Kirin 9010 found in Huawei's Pura 70 mobile phones. Therefore, the 4 prime cores will likely utilize the Tizen V121 architecture. In contrast, the performance cores step down to Tizen V20, and the efficiency cores probably use a standard Cortex design, likely the Cortex A510. There aren't many performance indicators yet, but the server-oriented designs, likely the Kunpeng 930 of Taishan's V120 architecture match AMD Zen 3 in single-core performance, the Kirin X90 will still probably be built using SMIC's aging 7nm process node, which is likely a bottleneck. Having their own OS and silicon makes Huawei less dependent on Western tech. It ensures tighter integration within its ecosystem, leading to better optimization, reliability, faster development, and performance. So how many developers will port their existing apps on how many OS? That depends on how well the platform takes off. Compatibility layers are a solution, but in the end, Huawei wants to buy Apple's market share. If Huawei wants to buy Apple's market share, it needs a strong ecosystem, including essential daily apps. That being said, building a homegrown software alternatives is also an option that fits China's ambitions of tech autarky. So no matter what, we might expect to see some actual performance tests of the chip once the Matebook Pro comes out on May 19th. And I'm interested to see the future of Huawei in this business venture of theirs, because I always find it impressive when a company is able to do most of its designs and features in-house rather than relying on external sources, because at the end of the day, external sources they take a bit longer, and there is the risk of bloating your company when you do everything in-house. However, depending on how you go about it, if you have different divisions that technically are their own sub-companies, it could be faster. That depends on how the company goes about it, because if you just have one large company with many divisions, that would bloat the company. But if you have many companies that fall part of the same family and they all work together on one another's products, then there's more agility to each of the companies, because they tend to be smaller that way. So fundamentally, behind the scenes they would be large, but in practice they would be quite small. And I can put the next timestamp in. It would be 43. Alright, moving on. LegoGPT creates Lego designs using AI and text inputs. The tool is now available for free to the public. So I wanted to have a look at this. I just think it's interesting to see what people's doing with AI. A research team from Carnegie Mellon University built an AI model called LegoGPT that outputs valid Lego designs from text inputs. According to the team's research paper that's posted on GitHub, they trained an autoregressive large language model to predict the next brick to add via next token prediction. But the key takeaway is that the AILM creates Lego designs from scratch. The AI was trained on a dataset with more than 47,000 Lego structures that build over 28,000 unique 3D objects, including bookshelves, tables, chairs, cars, ships, guitars, and more. This was then used to train the AI model, allowing it to create unique and original designs solely from text inputs. The tool is available for free on GitHub, and you can pair this with a computer vision model or image processing AI. For example, you can take a photo of your available Lego bricks and let the AI give you a multitude of unique options for building with what you already have. The team added a validity check and physics-aware rollback during autoregressive inference, ensuring that the final product will always be valid and stable. Furthermore, LegoGPT's further output can be built by both humans and robots. And that's pretty cool to see. I think I'm going to cut it off over there, because I think I got my fill for what I wanted from the article. I think it's very interesting to see what people are developing with AI. It's pretty cool. So that was a pretty short one, and we can put another timestamp of 45. 45, we can do that. So keeping up with the trend of following in-house ARM chips from various companies, Lenovo has developed its in-house ARM chip, which could rival Qualcomm and MediaTek, and it was spotted in the Gigabyte Pro 2-in-1 convertible. So it reportedly wields a 10-core layout fabbed on TSMC's 5nm process. That's pretty cool to see. And a growing trend towards in-house chips is emerging across the industry, particularly surrounding Chinese manufacturers, evidenced by Huawei's Kirin X90, Xiaomi's rumored X-Ring, and now apparently Lenovo is in the mix as well. As noted by a user at X, formerly Twitter, Lenovo's upcoming Gigabyte Pro was seen featuring a custom SoC codenamed SS1101, which is likely using ARM's off-the-shelf Cortex designs. This was further confirmed and analyzed in detail by leaker Digital Chat Station, though some technical details remain in the dark. With limited global coverage and availability, Lenovo's Gigabyte Pro series is likely reserved for the Chinese market, serving as 2-in-1 hybrid devices that can be featured as either a laptop or tablet. The previous iteration, which launched last December, was powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chipset. Since Lenovo is predominantly a PC laptop first company, the decision to invest in custom chips for a relatively smaller market is somewhat intriguing. The SoC in question features a deca-core 2233 layout based on ARM64 V8A ISA, though the precise CPU core architectures and configuration details have not been specified. The fastest cluster is specified to hit 3.29 GHz, complemented by a trio of cores at 2.83 GHz, another pair at 1.9 GHz, and the remaining at 1.71 GHz. So Digital Chat Station alleges the SoC uses an ARM Immortalis G720 GPU, also found in MediaTek's Dimensity 9300 and 8400 SoCs. Fabrication-wise, another leaker, Alrak, alludes to a 5nm process from TSMC instead of SMIC or Samsung. Chinese manufacturers are actively pushing out indigenous chips solutions, aligning with the nation's objective to reduce reliance on Western technology, also due to Western bans. A significant impediment in China's progress lies in semiconductor manufacturing, where SMIC has been limited to 7nm technology for several years. Surprisingly, the US ban hammer hasn't struck down Lenovo or Xiaomi, for that matter, so these entities can actively procure leading-edge chips from TSMC, at least for the time being. Since Lenovo has not detailed the specifics of its SoC, we will have to wait until the independent reviews of the tablet or the official datasheet, whichever comes first. Now I have been looking at Xiaomi tablets and their phones, and I do have some interest in both. Now the tablet could be replaced in terms of purchase by a future iPad, however it all comes down to the applications that's available. And should the availability of applications be pretty convenient on the Xiaomi tablets, then I would probably purchase a Xiaomi tablet instead. I can make this at 50/30. So the Noctua NH-D15 G2 gains offset mounting bars for Adder Lake CPUs to optimize cooling performance. So this is probably to compensate for the alleged hotspot. Yeah, Adder Lake allegedly has a hotspot location northeast of the package, which Noctua's new mounting bars compensate for. So this could be due to the curvature of the die whenever it's mounted in the retention bracket. And I just need some water real quick. Alright. So Noctua has created a new mounting modification for its flagship NH-D15 G12 cooler, CPU cooler tailored specifically for Core Ultra 200 series CPUs, and its new NMIB8 mounting bars provide up to a 3-degree temperature improvement by shifting the center of the NH-D15 G2's contact plate northeast of the CPU package. The NMIB8 mounting bars only replaced the NH-D15 G2's existing units. The rest of the mounting equipment that comes with the cooler, including the washers and screws, are reused. Noctua claims the adjusted mounting spot provides a 3 degrees Celsius drop in temperature with the HPC version of the NH-D15 G2 and a 1 degree Celsius drop from the standard version. Now, something that I can admire about Noctua is its support for even its oldest of models that it's released. They still provide mounting hardware for the older CPU coolers, and it's admirable to see someone stand to buy their product as much as Noctua does. The NMIB8's new mounting location is allegedly 3.7mm north and 2mm east of the center of the LGA 1851 socket. This location is directly above Adder Lake's compute tile, which houses the P-cores and E-cores. Noctua claims this area is the hottest side of the package when running multi-core workloads, which makes sense. By contrast, the original mounting solution puts the contact point of the cooler directly in the middle of the CPU package, which resides directly over the right bottom edge of the compute die and near to the SoC tile and the I/O tile, which is significantly cooler. All three versions of Noctua's NH-D15 G2 are compatible with the NMIB8 mounting solution. With standard HPC and LBC versions, other Noctua models are not compatible. The NMIB8 is Noctua's first offset mounting kit optimized for Intel processors. Previous generations of Intel CPUs, including LGA 1700 chips, took advantage of the monolithic die design, which only had a hotspot area very close to the center of the CPU package. As a result, they did not need any sort of mounting offset to improve cooling performance. Noctua first started shipping offset mounts for AMD AM4 and AM5 based processors. These offset mounts are prioritized, shifting a Noctua cooler's central portion towards the CPU's outer spot, namely the chiplet containing the CPU cores. However, on AMD's Ryzen based chips, the cores are located in a different location compared to Adder Lake chips. The NH-D15 G2 is the successor to the legendary NH-D15 that debuted all the way back in 2014. Sorry about that. One of the most prominent upgrades with the G2 variant is the addition of two alternative variants of the cooler tailor-made for specific CPUs. The HPC variant has a modified contact plate optimized for LGA 1700 chips that bend heavily in their socket LPCs aim for the relatively flat CPUs such as LGA 2011 or AM4 processors. Now there was a video on Gamers Nexus that went over the different curvatures of the CPUs. I believe AMD curves upwards while Intel curves inwards. Well, I may stand corrected, it might be the other way around. These alternative versions are primarily geared towards enthusiasts or overclockers who want to exact as much performance from the NH-D15 G2 as possible. There is still a vanilla version of the cooler that works with all types of chips and is tuned for balanced performance across a variety of chips. Very interesting to see the developments of Noctua, if I'm being completely honest. I am a Noctua fan, and I will remain as such until they become anti-consumer, which so far they have not showed any signs of doing so. So Seagate is on track for a 100TB HDD by 2030 and claims the current top drive will triple in capacity in 5 years. So having a closer look at this, Seagate will bring a 100TB HDD to the market by 2030 according to comments from its CCO. In an interview with CNBC, the CCO BST shared Seagate's new 100TB goal, citing demand from the AI and HPC markets driving the great leap in capacity. This is a key enabler for the industry to be able to deliver the storage capacity that the market needs, the CCO shared, when asked about the demand for 100TB units. There is no other technology that's available to produce this capacity of storage technology to meet the growth that the market needs. Seagate's current largest hard drive by capacity is the Exos Mosaic 3 Plus, a 36TB drive released this year and available only to select customers. The hard drive line uses HAMR, heat-assisted magnetic recording technology, briefly heating the recording regions and reducing the intensity required to write data to disk, greatly improving storage density. The HDD contains 10 glass data platters, which Seagate has produced in capacities of up to 6TB each, making Seagate's current theoretical size limit 60TB. While the current corporate roadmap does not stretch this far, with Seagate in January saying it expects its next platform, the Mosaic 4 Plus, to bring 40TB plus HDDs in 2026. And the following Mosaic 5 Plus platform to bring 50TB drives in 2028 or later. This falls well short of Seagate's 2017 roadmap, which aimed for 50TB hard drives by 2026. As a result, it could be wise to take claims of 100TB by 2030 with a grain of salt, unless Seagate has plans beyond HAMR after Mosaic 5 Plus. Seagate will also have energy conservation interests breathing down its neck in its race to boost capacity as the AI market continues to demand an ever greater share of energy grid. Energy efficiency will likely be a more serious concern than consolidating capacity for enterprise users. At the same time, I still think that data centers and these AI farms should look into generating their own electricity on site as well, because just to supplement the large power consumption that these places have. We can move over to the next article. Let me just add a timestamp. So 0100 15. We can do that. So AMD has released an updated FidelityFX SDK featuring FSR 3.1.4 with reduced upscaler ghosting. So while FSR 3.1 was a good improvement over FSR 2 and FSR 3, It was still well short of DLSS 3, unfortunately. AMD has just released an update with FidelityFX software development kit for game developers. I can't read today. This kit combines a range of AMD technologies that can improve image quality and performance through various techniques. However, for most gamers, probably the most important technology is FSR. It's worth noting that AMD also offers FSR 4, but this version is exclusive to RDNA 4 graphics cards. The AI-based upscaling algorithms runs on top of the driver and requires users to enable updated technology on a per-game basis. Meanwhile, FSR 3.1 remains the version that most gamers will use without access to the newer upscaling method. With the new SKD, AMD releases a new version of FSR 3.1.4, which reduces disk calculation ghosting. This improvement comes with a newly introduced default setting for one of the parameters, but so not really a new algorithm, just a tweak to settings. And not much else is in the article. New DLL working fine on The Last of Us 2. The thing I'm going to find most fascinating is how many comments got deleted after AMD announces FSR 4 for RDNA 3. This does not change anything. RX 5000, 6000 and even 7000 series users are still stuck with the pixelated mess, while AMD pretends ghosting was a big problem. Meanwhile, NVIDIA gives DLSS 4 support to a 2060 from 2019, but AMD's 2023 cards are already missing out. People act like AMD is a good guy. AMD doesn't even bother to offer full support for their flagship cards like the 7900 XTX and €1000 card that is already obsolete. After FSR 4, we all know it's easier for them to do machine learning based upscaler compared to the software solution. Good to know AMD ain't abandoning it. This alongside XSS, D4PA version and TSR, cause I genuinely curious how far they will go relying on software solution compared to hardware based. And they are all software, even hardware based ones. Without software won't work. AI will integrate in all systems, and hardware's platform specific upscaler will die in 10 to 20 years. You can see sparks of it by DirectSR for now. Now watch all the NVIDIA sponsored devs not update FSR in their games on purpose. It's not that it's on purpose, it's a waste of time. Because at the end of the day, FSR 4 only supports one generation of GPUs, which is not the majority of the GPUs that users have. The majority of users are rocking like RX 580s and 6600s. That's the unfortunate reality that we find ourselves in. And neither of those cards are capable of using FSR 4, so there's no need to. Meanwhile, DLSS 4 is utilized by all the way down to the 20 series GPUs, which at this point in time, the 3060 12GB is one of the most popular GPUs, and outside of that there's the 3070 that's a popular choice. There's the 2070 and the 2060 Super. All of those are able to support the DLSS 4 technology, which gives them a better incentive to go with that. Not to mention the fact that NVIDIA graphics cards still make up the vast majority of the gaming GPU market. So basically AMD 7000 series 1 or 2 years old GPU will die with no real improvement over time. On the other hand, even NVIDIA 2060 received DLSS for upscaler. This is a good way to create trust among your consumer. And this is the biggest mistake that AMD made when they did software super sampling instead of going a machine learning hardware route. They fell behind and they played into their behind technology, and it's now biting them because they did not provide the necessary technology. And it's an unfortunate thing, right? Because AMD technically had the opportunity to produce that technology with Arduino 2, because by the time Arduino 1 came out, DLSS was already a thing, so they could have prepared, if not the feature, but at least the hardware in Arduino 2, and by the time Arduino 3 came out, they could have had a hardware level upscaler for their GPUs, but unfortunately they did not. They had some of the technology in Arduino 3, but it's still not 100% compatible with something like FSR4, which is unfortunate to see, but it's something that will improve in the future. So if you do buy a 9070, 9070 XT, 9070 GRE, 9060 XT, hopefully there's no 9060 if I'm being completely honest. If you do purchase those, it will probably be an investment in the future, because it's likely that their future upscalers will be supported on the 90 series of Radeon graphics cards. Having a look in the next article, I'll just add another timestamp. 0116 55. Can do that. Alright, so the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5090 prices are nearing official MSRP in Finland, and now it's not a real MSRP, nor does this reflect the situation in all markets, but it looks like the situation for the 5090 high-end GPU is slowly getting better. According to is that Gazelle's, a price comparison tool that aggregates offers from many stores across Europe, the cheapest 5090 cards currently cost around 2,599 euros. This is still higher than the MSRP for Euro countries. However, one Reuters reports that in Finland, the RTX 5090 can now be found for 2,456 euros. The official MSRP in Finland is 2,339 euros, and the country has a high VAT of 25.5% that is also included in the MSRP, if I remember correctly. When compared to the US pricing on the official MSI store, we find that the Ventus model costs $2,999 US. Even when directly converted into euros, that equals 2,668 euros, and after removing the VAT, it drops to 2,235 euros. The point is, even with VAT, this offer from Finland retailer is still cheaper than the current official US price, which is funny to see that Euro for once has the better priced GPUs, because I've seen many Redditors complain about the prices in Europe due to several taxes and several added taxes that get added to that. Now, I may be standing corrected on that statement, but I do believe that Europe has quite a few taxes that apply to the graphics cards. But yes, this can also be due to the fact that the 5090 is likely officially banned from China, and Nvidia won't be able to sell to them anymore, so they will have to reduce their prices to maintain movement of the stock of the 5090 cards. Now, considering raw performance per watt and prices, I'm more than even considering to buy a Mac instead of an x86 PC machine. In a professional sense, the Mac will always be better for you in terms of the running costs and overall performance. This generation is a disgrace when it comes to raw raster performance. I'll bide my time for the 6000 series. I had a GeForce 6600 GT once. It was a beast unmatched in its era. Let's see what rises this time and whether it's worthy. I doubt. So probably the Super Series refresh for the Blackwell GPUs will probably be worth it if they maintain the same MSRP, but if the MSRP rises, then it will not improve in terms of the overall improvement of the generation itself. However, I would recommend waiting for the Super Series. It has not been officially confirmed, but behind the scenes, many leakers are talking about the super re-release of the NVIDIA Blackwell GPUs, which are supposed to have preparation for some announcement in late 2025. However, I suspect that it will be a CES launch. Summer is coming even in Finland, so less demand for GPUs that double as space heaters. The RTX 1590 Ventus is 2,562 euros in Sweden with VAT. That's actually a decent price, not gonna lie. Cheapest 1590 is 3,400 US dollars in Turkey. Literally 50% people get paid 300 US dollars monthly, by the way. Oof, that's rough. That is very rough. But at the end of the day, I view GPUs, if you are a gamer, not just GPUs, any computer component is not essential, it's a toy if you use your computer purely for gaming. Now, many people would argue that with their gaming PC, they can do all sorts of things. They can video edit, even though they never edited a video in their life. They can perform their business-related tasks, even though they do those tasks on a laptop that they own. And they try to make every other excuse to why they have the gaming PC. At the end of the day, it's just an expensive toy if you use it purely for gaming. There's nothing about a gaming PC that is essential if you use it purely for gaming, unless you make money off of it, at which point you can call it an investment tool. But if it's not being used for those purposes, then it's just a toy. And people need to stop treating it like it's some sort of tool, because at the end of the day, you're using it like a toy. You're using it like a glorified console, which is why I recommend console gaming if you only use a gaming PC for gaming, because at the end of the day, the console's going to come out cheaper for you. And if you're in the need of a computer for business related tasks, then you can just get a laptop instead. You get a business laptop and a console, and you'll have optimized gaming, and you'll have a laptop that's portable for your business related tasks. Let's move on to the next one. There's 3 articles left. We add the timestamp 01 13 11, no, not 11, 15 20. So Gigabyte launches the BRIX 0.46 liter Mini-PCs with the Core Ultra 255H and 225H. So I just wanted to have a look at this because I am a Mini-PC enthusiast, and I want to keep up to date with the news in the Mini-PC space. Having a look at this, I can see what seems to be a standard USB-C output. There's probably USB 2. I'm going to look at the back. There's HDMI, DisplayPort. This looks like it's a power connector. I may stand corrected of that being a power connector. We have 1 Ethernet port. Overall, the connectivity is not that bad. It features 6 P cores, 8 E cores, and 2 low power cores. It has 8 XE cores. Moving on. So it's USB 3.2, USB-C, power delivery. Okay. We have Thunderbolt 4. We have HDMI 2.1. We have 2 of those. So it's 2 HDMI ports. There's no DisplayPort. That's interesting to see. What about the front? Is the front a USB 4 or just standard USB-C? In any case, it features LPDDR, not LPDDR5, it's standard DDR5X. It's 48 gigabyte modules with speeds of up to 6400 megahertz. Where? Wait, where? I wanna get this. I genuinely wanna get this. This sounds good. If I can find out where that is. Does it say the RAM? Please say the RAM. Oh, it doesn't give the RAM. Oh, that sucks. I wish I would give it. So it's a USB-C Gen 2. 3.2 Gen 2, so I was correct about that being a USB 3, USB-C. Okay, it has a power supply of 100 watts, more than enough for the hardware that's inside of it. But I want to have a look at this 48 gigabyte DDR5 SODIMM 6400 Hz, because the Kingston Fury is the only one that provides this. That is everything that I know. Let me have a look at this. Oh, that looks like that's going to be desktop RAM. Let's have a look. So the Kingston will go up to 32 gigabytes, 6,400 megatransfers per second. Now the problem is that, man, I don't think, no, it's not able to, because the tighter timings on this one, which is sad. It's so sad. I really want to get this. Profile type plug and play, not Intel XMP, because I am so interested in purchasing the a 6400 mega transfer kit. I'm super interested to see what they have for that in the future, but unfortunately it doesn't look like there's anything that can compare to that. No, I don't see anything that's in the... Okay, here we have the 6,000 mega transfers per second. Here's the Kingston Fury, the 6,400 mega transfers per second, but there's nothing else that competes with the speed. No, there isn't anything that competes with it. This is the largest 32 gigabyte kit that's available. So it's unfortunate to see. I had hoped that I would be able to find something like that. That's just complete hardware for a desktop. Because I'm so interested in finding SD RAM that's like super fast. Outside of the CUDIM RAM. What is it? The CAM2 memory. If I can find CAM2 Mini-PCs, that would be so nice. If I can find CAM2 Mini-PCs, but unfortunately I have not been able to find a single one of those in the wild. At least not yet. That's probably the future. Moving on. The XFX Radeon RX 9060 XT 16GB and 8GB GPUs with 3.3 GHz clock speeds have been listed by a retailer, and the price starts at $450, which is very unfortunate to see, because it means the 8GB variant starts at that price. So having a look. Yep, the 8GB variant is the one that starts at $450 and $520 for these 16GB. So you are spending $70 on an 8GB VRAM upgrade, which is very unfortunate to see. It's super unfortunate, because this is not good to see. It's very disappointing, to be quite frank, and to be blunt, it's disgusting at best. And this should not be the pricing that we see for these GPUs. I didn't see any... let's see. The 9060 XT, which is only 66.7 the size of the 9070 GOE, can't compete with the 5060 Ti in any way. Price aside, was disappointed. Also despair over the nonsensical pricing of the 9070 GOE. We have no idea what AMD is thinking. Of course we don't. No one does. AMD doesn't even know what it's thinking. $520 is dead on arrival. Why buy that when you can buy the $600 9070 XT? And not $600 anymore. No, but it says right there in the slide, the MSRP is 600, so there should be some at that price, right? None at all. Wow, why would NVIDIA do this to us? That's not even NVIDIA, my friend. What the hell are you talking about? Lamau, I am a laptop user. Desktop builders are cooked. I pray for you. I wasn't feeling cooked when I bought my 9070 XT for MSRP at launch. Meanwhile, laptop users are paying $1590 money for less than $5080 performance, Lamau. But you have portability, and at the end of the day, let's be completely honest here. Them laptops are using way less power than your gaming PC, so your running costs are going to be much higher as well. Rip. Yep, everyone is disappointed to see this. AMD is winning. NVIDIA, goodbye. See, now that's a fanboy right there. That is a blind fanboy. Lord have mercy. Probably actual pricing instead of MSRP. Yes, it's actual pricing. It's not MSRP. These are probably real prices as opposed to fake MSRP prices. That is correct. These are real prices that you'll probably be seeing for these GPUs, which is unfortunate to see that these graphics cards are coming in at these prices. I'm looking at a second article released with the ACER Radeon 9060 XT NITRO leak. Confirms triple display output and a single 8-pin power connector. So it's only triple display, not quadruple. That is strange to see. Let's see. So this is a quadruple and this is triple. That is weird. And it's priced at 450. Ooh. Price starts at $450. So this is going to be a common price then. This is a very common price that they're going to have. That is concerning. But the prices are this outrageous. They are reaching this outrageous heights, but unfortunately that is the PC gaming space that we are in, where all companies have less than real MSRPs, and gamers are pulling the short straw out of this generation for all companies, unfortunately. But that does bring us to the end. I will not have another stream later today. I won't have a stream on Sunday either. It will be Monday morning. And I'll hopefully be on time with a 9 o'clock stream, standard South African time. So until then, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. And I will catch you guys in the next stream on Monday.